Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Have It Your Way. Way back in the 1980s, I was the entire computer department in the manufacturing company I worked for. In about 1985, the company computerized its materials requirements planning, MRP. This was a long process that went overnight, and in the morning I would print off the reports. We soon discovered that occasionally the process would stop for a computer error that needed operator intervention. As I lived only about 4 miles away from the factory, it was decided that I would be entrusted with the keys and the code to the alarm, so that I could go and check the computer at about 22:30. Here is where I should mention that in the 1980s we still worked with manual time cards to clock in and out, and HR would round up/down the times. For example, if I arrived in the morning at any time between 7:21 and 7:39, my hours would be calculated as having started at 7:30, which was the official starting time. The first month we did this, I went in once a week, arriving at about 22:25 and leaving at 22:35. When I checked my overtime on my wage slip, it was 40 minutes less than I had calculated. I went in to check with HR. They told me that as I had clocked in at 22:25 and left at 22:35, both times were registered as 22:30. So technically I hadn't been there. Please note that this is a manual system, so HR could have used their common sense and given me 10 minutes each time, but they didn't. So each time I went in after that, I made sure to arrive at 10:39 and leave at 10:51, which was rounded to arriving at 10:30 and leaving at 11, giving me 30 minutes of overtime. So instead of paying me for 40 minutes each month, they ended up paying me for 2 hours. It's not a large amount, but if you are going to play by the rules, you should first make sure that they don't affect you negatively. The next story is called Not Allowed in the Store. This happened a few years ago. I used to work at a popular game store, where pre-orders are very encouraged. I was the only manager on duty when a customer came in to get their pre-order of the game. The game was Jump Force. There are 3 editions of the game: Regular, Special Edition and Collector's Edition. If you pre-ordered the Special Edition, you can pick up the game early on Tuesday. It was now Wednesday, and the regular version released on Friday. Or Thursday night, how my store did it. I already knew people were coming in to pick up the game. When I clocked in, my store leader told me he called several people to let them know they can pick up their game, and he left for the day. I was running the store with another employee when one came in to pick up their collector's edition of the game. I told him only the special edition, not the collector's, is available for pickup. He was upset and confused, because the special edition is like $80 whole, and the collector's edition is $250. To top it off, he pulled out his phone and played a voicemail of the store leader, saying to come to pick up the collector's edition. Well, hard to argue with that, especially since the store leader got upset last time I didn't give out a pre-order item. Long story short with that, I got in trouble. Had to call the guy to bring it back, and he did bring it back the next day. Again, for the record, the game was already released at that point, so there weren't any big issues with the game being out before release. It was just the edition of the game. A few months go by when our district manager comes in and interrogates me about that day, and wanted me to sign a statement saying I cost the company money. I refused to sign it because it wasn't really my fault. I just did what the store leader said, and the customer brought it back the next day and was specifically asking for employees not to get in trouble. I got suspended and was not allowed in the store till the suspension was over. As I said earlier, the company is very big on pre-orders. They push it extremely hard on the employees to have customers pre-order games and collectibles. Their entire metrics and programs meant just to measure pre-orders. I like to collect Yu-Gi-Oh cards. There was a very popular set and I pre-ordered 15 of them because I get a discount and I like cards. Well, it turns out I was not allowed back in the store to pick up my pre-orders while I was suspended. So I went to another store to pick them up and had them call my store to cancel all the pre-orders and just picked up all the ones that the store had. This completely messed with the store numbers. Didn't care. Got fired after my suspension instead of coming back. The store closed down less than a year later. The last story is called Don't Leave the Section. This happened about 15 years ago at my original store. I worked in the ladies wear section during recovery. This means basically tidying up and sometimes printing price tickets for the shelves if any were missing or torn. And though it was generally possible to get it finished within the time allotted for my shift, busy days or events turned it into a nightmare. As if the usual holiday shopping mess wasn't bad enough, the department manager, Stacy, had, in all her infinite wisdom, decided to put all of the ladies' wear clearance into the section at once. They actually did it for all the clothes departments, but most of them only had a small amount, so you could easily fit it all on the normal clearance racks. However, ladies' wear had ended up with 10 times as much clearance as usual for this time of year, because whoever decides what clothes we'll sell made bad choices. We ended up with mountains of horrid outfits marked down to $1, even though most people wouldn't wear it if you paid them $50. Usually they would keep most of the excess stock out the back and just have a few racks of it in the section. And as the stuff in the section sold and the racks got empty, they'd be replenished for more stock from out the back. For some reason, Stacy decided she wanted all the ladies' wear clearance to be available to customers at once, even though it didn't physically fit on the racks. Not to be deterred by stupid little things like logic and reason, she moved the regular stock from the main middle aisle of the section into other aisles, causing those to be overfull. And then she ordered the fill staff to put the clearance all along the middle aisle. When I say the clothes were literally bulging off the shelf arms, I'm not exaggerating. You could barely even walk down the aisle without the first 4 to 5 things on each arm falling off. And of course, if a customer wanted to look at anything further back on the shelf, they'd knock most of the other stuff off in the process. So there was constantly a several inch thick layer of clothes lying on the floor. This made it literally impossible to actually recover the clearance section properly. But generally, recovery staff was told to prioritize doing a pickup every hour or so and make sure there was no stock on the floor. We spent the rest of the time going through and recovering the section, making sure everything was in the right place and in the correct size order. I had a shift on Boxing Day, and I'd heard from the pre-shift huddle that one of the big regional managers was coming in to visit/inspect the store at closing time, and that we needed to make sure the store was perfect. Not sure how that was meant to happen on Boxing Day and with half the number of staff we needed, but whatever. When I started my shift, 90% of the clearance clothing was on the floor. For most of the aisles, you couldn't even see the floor. I knew that there was no way I'd be able to keep the floor clean in the clearance section, because my shift ended at the same time the store closed. So anything I tidied up would immediately be destroyed by customers. So I decided I would focus on getting the rest of the section presentable, and then quickly try to pick up the clearance section in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the shift before the store shut. At the start of my shift, I did a small pickup in clearance and tried to shove most of the mess to the side a bit, so that it at least wasn't right in the middle of the aisle. Then I went to start the rest of the section, only to be confronted by Stacy. "What are you doing? Have you seen clearance? Why aren't you fixing it? It's all over the floor." "Yeah, because you put too much stock in there." I picked it up, but it falls off again, because the shelves are too full and customers just knock it down as soon as I fix it anyway. "Well, are you planning to do anything about it?" "Right now, I can't do anything about it. There are so many customers in the aisles, I can hardly get in there anyway. And since I can't keep clearance tidy with customers in the store, I figured I'd get the rest of ladies' wear tidied and then pick up clearance at the end." "Not good enough. You need to make sure clearance is off the floor and sorted properly. You know Bob, the regional manager, is due for a visit this evening." "I understand that, but like I said, it's literally impossible to recover clearance because of how much stock is in there and how many customers there are. If I can at least do the rest of the area first, then it will be only clearance that looks a bit rough, and I can at least make sure everything is off the floor at the end of the shift. You don't get to decide what you prioritize. You need to make sure the clearance is perfect. I know no one likes clearance, but you need to stop making excuses to get out of doing it, so don't leave the clearance section until you finish tidying it." Okay. 5 minutes before my shift ends and the store closes, the regional manager, Bob, shows up and is escorted around the store by the store manager, Mark, and Stacy. They stop in front of ladies' wear, and Stacy just breathes, "What the heck?" You see, I had finished tidying clearance. Though the shelves were still overfull, none of the stock was on the floor in that aisle, and everything was in the right size order and hanging neatly. The clearance section was my magnum opus of recovery if I do so myself. However, the rest of the ladies' wear department had not been touched. She said I couldn't finish tidying clearance until the store was pretty much closed, and I wasn't allowed to leave clearance until I did finish it. This meant that the rest of the ladies' wear looked like a bomb had hit it. There was stock all over the floor and clothes draped over the shelves instead of hung up properly. There were broken coat hangers everywhere and abandoned shopping baskets and piles of stock from other departments left lying around in the aisles. Bob and Stacy looked like they were ready to end me. But Mark, who knew I was generally a good worker, asked why ladies' wear was in such poor condition, given that I was meant to have been recovering it for 3 hours. I explained. Stacy told me I wasn't allowed to leave the clearance section until I'd finished tidying it. But there's so much overstock and so many customers pulling things apart that most of the stock won't stay on the shelves. In one of those moments of perfect cosmic timing, right as I said that, one of the shelf arms behind me gave way with a loud crash, sending an entire rack of clothes to the floor. Mark just stared at me silently for a few seconds, then said to me, "Well, you have done well under the circumstances. You can go home." I'm not sure if Stacy got into any trouble, but nothing else was said about it to me by the store manager, and I never got any warnings or disciplinary action or anything. The following shift, more rails had been brought out from the back and placed in the central aisle of the store. Some of the clearance had been moved to those rails to free up space in ladies' wear. Stacy refused to talk to me for about a fortnight though, which was nice. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and would like to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.